It's Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we're going to talk about Moorland, the game about more land. Get it? So, Emily and I went to a Rangers game, and I'm not going to talk about the Rangers stinking it up. Like we
talked about that already.
Yep.
It's not going to, we can talk. Basically, we can just stop talking about hockey until
something changes
next season.
Yeah. I feel like the possible avenues are either we stop worrying about hockey early and we can spend that time on other things, or
that's what I'm doing. Or
we get to watch an abortive attempt to claw out of the bottom wildcard slot. But so we went to a hockey game like during the holiday week at MSG, and I want to be very clear. This is not going to be a disparagement of people who have never been to a hockey game before or tourists. Like, that is not the lead of.
That's what I want to do.
No, I mean that could be done, but I'm not doing that here because at this hockey game, for reasons that range from the Rangers are stinking it up to, it was a holiday week where a lot of people are out of town.
The holiday games always are a higher price with higher demand and to more tourists and more people who don't usually go often try to go to holiday games because that's when they don't have work. So people don't have work and they're like, hey, it's like even my family back in the day, on the day after Thanksgiving, we would go to AHL game because it was like, hey, what a convenient time.
So we used to watch the minor league team in Detroit like kind of often on like a random Thursday. But so we're there, and of course, we have half season tickets, and there's a usual crowd around us. Like there's these two guys who are basically Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets sitting next to us, but didn't see any familiar faces. Obviously, all people who have bought those tickets or been gifted them by relatives who have the seats, and it was super obvious that a lot of these people had never been to MSG before, because when the on ice video starts playing, I think 40% of all the people I could see got out their phones and videoed the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the same one every game gets.
Yep, and people were all videoing themselves with selfies, and that was cool, especially because these people didn't seem to quite come in expecting to boo the way I came in expecting to boo.
That's right.
But over the course of the game, I overhear a conversation behind us, and bit by bit, most of the people sitting behind us started having this conversation. Clearly, none of them knew each other, but they are all tourists visiting New York City. One of them was from Sweden. One of them was from somewhere out west. One of them was from somewhere in South America. They were all tourists who were in New York City visiting the city for the holidays who got tickets to see a hockey game. So,
yeah, I mean, the people who are from the hockey watching countries often you hear people speaking other languages at Madison Square Garden, right? I mean, anywhere in New York, you hear a million languages. But in Madison Square Garden, the languages I hear most often, you'd think, well, in New York, the second most languages are going to be Chinese and Spanish. But I don't hear those at Madison Square Garden for hockey games very often. You hear German, Swedish, French, Canadian, right? Those are the, Finnish one time.
I think I've heard more what I assume was Quebecois French in MSG than I've heard anywhere else I've ever been.
Yeah, it's you hear languages, unsurprisingly, from hockey-playing nations.
Yep. So I got to overhear these tourists all start talking to each other, as they all realize they're tourists, and talking about New York City. And one guy, and this guy is who I'm talking about, starts interacting with all of them. Oh yeah, I live here. And starts talking to them about their experiences as tourists in New York City. Cool. This guy sucks ass. This guy was a problem. So basically, over the course of the game, he starts giving them advice, and they start asking him questions about the city. And it is very obvious to me, as a New Yorker, immediately, there's no way this fucking guy lives in New York City. There's absolutely no universe, unless he moved here yesterday, that guy lives in New York City based on the words he is saying to these tourists. So some examples. One of them asks so how should I be getting around? I got in yesterday, and he's like, oh yeah, don't take the subway. Lyft will get you anywhere in the city. He's telling him to take lifts everywhere.
Maybe he's a rich guy.
Yeah.
There are people who do that who live here.
Then he launches into how, well, the subway works, but the thing about the subway is that nobody here pays for it. You don't have to pay for it. You should just jump over the turnstile. Everyone jumps over the turnstile. Nobody pays for the subway.
Some people jump over the turnstile, but hardly. It's not a high percentage.
Also, considering that New York sometimes has a cop literally hiding around the corner waiting for someone to jump over the turnstile, I don't think some random guy from the Netherlands should be jumping over a turnstile in New York City.
One time after a concert, we went into the subway, and in that particular subway entrance, it was the kind with, the big rotating turnstiles to get in.
Yeah.
And there was only two. So like you couldn't, I think one of them was an exit only. So it's like, it was really slowed for everyone to get through, right? After this concert, it was a lot of people using a low capacity entrance. And so someone opened the emergency exit and everyone was like, well, here we go. Good. We don't have to wait in this line and, miss the train or whatever by this low capacity turnstile. And then there were two cops who were just like, everyone go back. Everyone go back through the
But then they're like, oh, what should we go see? And he starts giving them like advice on what to see. And he literally starts with, you got to go to Times Square. That's like the coolest part of the city. Seeing the Statue of Liberty is amazing. You got to go to that island, like do the tour. Like he's just giving dog shit advice. But finally, and this goes on the entire game. I hear him behind me just giving the worst
Does
fucking
he live
advice.
In Staten Island? Is that where
he finally, one of them asks him, where in the city do you live? And at this point, my ears are fully back. Like, I'm just waiting to hear.
Way more interesting than the hockey game.
Right? And he says, oh, I live in a part of the city called Yonkers.
Yeah, no, you didn't. That's not New York City.
And this motherfucker left the game early, even though the game was actually really close at the end, assumedly because he has to go all the way
He has to get his ass back to Yonkers in a lift. So it's going to take a while.
So
I guess you could take the train to Yonkers.
Yeah. I mean, the train to Yonkers is great. I used to work in Yonkers. Yonkers is like, if you don't have a ton of money and you like got to work in the city and you can't work from home, like Yonkers.
And you want your taxes to be slightly more difficult.
Yeah.
To file?
Yeah. If you don't live in New York State, to tell all the rest of you, the two other listeners, if you live in New York State and you file taxes, there are two weird questions that like don't exist in other places. The weird question number one: do you live in New York City? Because like New York City has its own taxes. Most states don't have things like that. But there's also another item. Do you live in Yonkers? And if you check yes on that, you got to do a whole fucking thing.
I don't know what you have to do, but I imagine there are people who live in like Buffalo or north of Albany in the boonies, and like they fill out their state tax forms, and every year it's like, do you live in Yonkers? It's like there's another part of the form that literally has address. Yeah. It's like you're asking me if I live in Yonkers. You could just look at my address and see it doesn't say Yonkers on it.
Like imagine
my zip code is not the Yonkers zip code.
Imagine if every time you went to the doctor, they were legally obligated to ask you, have you lived in Antarctica for more than 6 months at a time?
Yeah. It's like...
But so also today, some news, not game-related news, but it's noteworthy because I have some anecdotes. New York City finally has congestion pricing. We're the first city in the country to do this.
Didn't San Diego have some?
I think it failed. Like, it didn't work out. I saw an article today on CNN that said first major city in the country to have congestion pricing. So if I'm wrong, blame CNN and a headline that I didn't read the article for. But so now you got to pay some money if you drive your car anywhere south of 59th Street in Manhattan, which, great. Like, this is fantastic. And dipshits are mad about this for dipshit reasons. But the funny thing is, the dipshits are all mad and arguing, well, then we should all boycott driving so they don't get that tax revenue and like take the subway or something.
Mission accomplished.
Like, that is literally the goal. Our goal is not to raise money. Our goal is to have fewer fucking cars in Midtown because it's the most congested place.
There's a New Jersey politician, I forget which one, what level he's at, but he's like, listen, if New York is going to do this to us, right, we should just congestion price them. And I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. Sickos, yes, let's do it.
Right?
Make it bigger than ours. Let's go.
So I have some anecdata because, I commute to New York and I live next to one of the main car entrances into Manhattan. Like I commute
Yeah,
there.
there's no real data yet though, because it's cold and snowy and still close to holiday time. So
it is,
you know.
But my anecdote is I have commuted into Midtown from Queens 2 days, and so far Crescent Street both days during rush hour has been like kind of empty, which is absolutely crazy because Crescent Street is usually an absolute shit show, even on like random midweek holiday days. Like it's always a shit show during the rush hour.
Right, but like this many people are like changing their whole routine to avoid $9.
It's an anecdote.
It's
like it was like today coming home. I jaywalked across Crescent Street and there were no cars on it trying to get into Manhattan.
Right. So either A, right, some of these people were taking a car when they didn't have to take a car and it wasn't actually more convenient. And they could have just taken the train. And it's like, yeah, those people for $9, right, would not take the car, right? But like, if I needed to actually go there in a car for some reason,
I would pay $9 to not have to sit in that traffic.
Right, and it's like, okay, yeah, there is traffic if I go through the congestion zone, but taking the Midtown Tunnel and the Lincoln Tunnel, a lot of times, especially if there's congestion pricing making people not go that way, am I going to go that way instead of the Verrazano or the George Washington Bridge if it's better? It's like, yeah, I'll probably pay $9 and go through if that's going to be a better way. So it's like how, I don't know.
So
we'll see.
Anecdata number 2, I work in Midtown, like next to Grand Central. There were almost there was no traffic. It was weird, like to the point that it stood out. I took a bunch of pictures of random intersections because there wasn't the usual traffic.
All right. Well, it was snowing, so we'll see what happens in
But
amount of time.
2 days in a row. But anecdata 3, the subway that I took to work and from work was the most crowded I have ever seen it when there wasn't a problem happening. Like crazy crowded. Queensboro Plaza, crazy crowded to and from work both days. Grand Central, the subway entrance, crazy crowded. So again, pure anecdata, but we'll see. I'm just glad this passed. It's a small thing, but Paris taking an anti-car stance has transformed that city in ways that Americans would see unimaginable. So this is a tiny step down a good road for the best city in the world.
We gotta keep it because there's still a lot of people fighting to undo it.
The federal government, the dictator to wannabe, has already talked about undoing it at the federal level.
It'll be difficult because not actually a dictator on paper. So good luck.
Even though everyone just keeps rolling over and capitulating, even though they don't have to, people should be making him fire them instead of just resigning. But that's a topic for another day.
People are cowards, just like the governor who put in the congestion pricing was too cowardly to keep the $15 and lowered it to $9.
Yeah,
bunch of cowards, everybody.
So in some news, we've gotten some data about Valve, the company, because of some lawsuits and things that happened recently. And I only want to talk about this data point, not any of the other things that are going on, just the data point. And the data point was comparing Valve as a company to Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Alphabet, so Google, Microsoft, Intel, and Amazon. And
NVIDIA?
Not NVIDIA. NVIDIA's not on this list.
Okay.
And there are 2 columns in this piece of data. Column number 1 is net income per hour per employee. And column 2 is net income per employee. So for example, Facebook makes $89 an hour per employee total in net income. So $780,000 per employee. I think it's per year.
So if you work for them and they pay you $50 an hour, that's $32 an hour they're stealing from you. Marxism.
Amazon makes
if you seize the means of production, you would get the $82.
Right. So Amazon, meanwhile, makes $1.81 in net income per hour per employee.
But they got a lot of employees and a lot of hours. That adds up to a lot of $1.
Yep. So that is interesting data in and of itself. But the reason we have this data point is because of lawsuits And as a result, all we know, because there's a redacted line at the top, Valve makes more money per employee than any of those companies.
It's not a surprise. Valve doesn't, all those other companies, right, need an employee to do some work to get some money, right? If you buy something on Amazon, they need to have warehouse people doing stuff, right?
Valve just needs Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike to exist.
Yeah, it's like Valve, they don't actually need to work very hard on Steam itself, right? They are developing Counter-Strike and some games and stuff, but it's like they don't need that. All their money comes from taking a 30% cut of all these games other people make. And when other people make games and sell them on Steam, Valve doesn't need to have employees working for that thing to happen. It's just an automated money-making machine, and they do not, as far as I'm aware, maintain it as much as they probably could or should. If you're a developer and you want to sell your game on Steam and you need like technical support from Valve people, how good are they really at that? I've heard not the best.
Yep.
Right?
Well, because do you know how many employees Valve actually has?
Not a lot.
336.
Yep.
79 of them work on Steam.
Yep.
181 work on Valve's, and this article, quote, games, unquote, department, doing, quote, whatever, unquote. Well, 41 work in hardware development, and 35 handle the rest of the company, like admin, finance, HR, everything else. So Valve is a very efficient company for all the reasons Scott described. And I still don't think
why are the Steam forums not moderated? All right, which one of the tens of people are gonna do?
Yeah,
right? It's like you need an army of people to moderate those, and if other companies do have those armies of people doing things that they should be doing, Valve just does less things that involve humans or doesn't do things they should be doing.
Valve is smaller than all but one of the companies I've ever worked for in my life. Oh, DeBella's was smaller, but that doesn't count. That wasn't a real job. Anyway, got any news?
We do have CES is happening, which means there's a whole lot of news in the tech world, right? But in the gaming world, there is less news. But didn't I send it to you? I'm looking. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, it's not. I didn't send you the news. That's why That's why I asked, because
I didn't know. Instead, I have the iMusic thing, which is for another conversation.
No, that's something else entirely. That's not even on the show. But anyway, no, the news is that there are going to be 2 new games, Gundam games, that are coming. Tabletop Gundam games. There's going to be a card game, and there's going to be a miniatures game. Right? The card game, we knew about it like Unplugged. It's been announced for a little while. The miniatures game is a newer news, at least to me. And so the card game, by all accounts, I mean, yeah, you get cards with pictures of Gundams on them, and the cards might look real nice, but it's going to be some garbage game, CCG, just like all those other Japanese
from
CCGs.
From the article, quote, the highly anticipated collectible card game titled Gundam Card Game. I could not imagine a more crass cash grab.
But yeah, this game is going to be probably bad based on my estimation. There is no indication that it is going to be good. I would avoid it. Yeah. But the miniatures game. Now here we have something going on with the miniatures game, right? Yes, there might, I don't know if there's going to be blind boxes or any collectible nonsense or not. I think they didn't say, at least I didn't see any info about it. I suspect it won't be. I suspect it'll be more Warhammer-esque, where it may be overpriced, but you buy what you're going to buy. But they're basically, the miniatures are Gundam models. You have to cut them out and assemble them, but they're only like a couple inches tall, and then you have to paint them. And it's like, hey, even if that game is complete shit, because it's going to be a turn-based tactical miniatures combat game, right? Where you roll dice, you do damage.
It happens on a 7x9 hex grid.
Yeah, it's like, you know what kind of game it's going to be. It might have some merit.
I see D10s appear to be the dice they use.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter in this case if this game sucks, because you could just buy 2-inch Gundam models and use them for whatever decoration, and that's hella fun. You know, it's like, what would be more fun than like one master grade? It's like what if you could buy like 32 inchers, right? It's like, how many 2-inchers can you get for the same price as like a 1/100 scale model or like an RG or whatever? It's like, this might be a much better value proposition. And also, the big models, they're kind of a project, right? If you want to do a really good job and do painting and stuff like that, right? It takes a while. And, that has to be like close to your main hobby to actually finish, a bunch of them if you're not just doing a lazy job. 2-inchers, you can get one of those done in a reasonable amount of time.
Like painting that is only about 2 or 3 times as much total effort as painting like a D&D miniature.
That's like a one afternoon activity.
Yeah.
Right there. Maybe not even. Like you can have all your friends come over and everyone can like paint a 2-incher and then you'd still have time to do other things.
I'm kind of into doing that at least once. I haven't done a mini painting in a long time.
I do a little paint and take. I did one at West.
Yeah.
Do it once in a while. But,
I was going to do one at West, but...
Painting minis is actually, I don't know if miniature war games are gaining in popularity, but painting is going
up. There were 3 different paint and take areas at PAX Unplugged that I saw.
Right, but I mean, like, there are new paint brands coming out. That is how hot miniatures painting is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go.
But anyway, things of the day. So remember a long, long time ago, one of our favorite things on the internet, HiSpace, the fake MySpace that was just like in the fictional world of The Legend of Zelda. And it was just like a cute experience of clicking around and seeing what like Epona or Malon think and post about like Link and Zelda. Like it was a cute thing that I don't think exists on the internet anymore. I've stumbled onto, and Emily actually was the one who pointed me at this, the closest thing to that I've seen in a long time. It's a Tumblr, but it is called Temperate Lake Dashboard Simulator, and it is a fake Tumblr of all the fish that live in a temperate lake and frogs and other things having the kinds of conversations animals like that would have if they could talk about the lake. It was funnier than it has any right to be, and I thoroughly enjoy this. Like, for example, I just migrated here from Finstagram, please be nice. The picture I post of myself versus the picture the biologist jaw tagging me in. So what do you got?
So back in the day on Twitter, right, one of the positive things about Twitter was that people would make accounts that would be collections of various things, right? And one of the good ones, like the PC98 bot, that would be all screenshots from, PC98 games.
Pixel Meat, a famous one about Pixel. I guess that was a Tumblr.
That was a Tumblr. There was the Simpson quote one, right? There were a lot like that. So, I think the new social media world where I don't exist because I've given up all that shit, needs some more of those, right? And so here's one on mastodon.world called Obsolete Sony. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It is just a collection of old, obsolete, forgotten, and obscure Sony products and devices. And some of them are just like old PlayStation, which when you see it, you're like, oh, I guess I'm old if you consider that an obsolete device. But some of them are really amazing things like Sony Ericsson phones that I've never seen before, or the Sony HitBit computers. Those are really amazing.
I can't get past the remote control for the 1986 Sony Beta Pro SL HF 900 Mark II. Holy shit, that is the most amazing remote control I've ever seen.
Yeah, they got a lot of good shit on here, so.
All right, let me pause there. In the meta moment, we're going to be at MagFest. It's coming up, and a little birdie told me that MagFest is about to sell out. So if you have not gotten
even though the price has gone up, it would sell out completely. That's
That's I'm telling you, there is a deep, deep hunger among the people who like conventions to go to conventions.
This could be a problem because right now, MagFest, you have the hotel problem. But you haven't had the badge fight problem. What if there is a badge fight for future MagFests?
Badge fight and hotel. I assume, did you get your email about your panelist badge?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
I don't know what the schedule is, but I did get the email.
I have the schedule. I will post our schedule of at least 3 panels
A listener emailed asking for the schedule, and I said, I don't even know it yet, and Rim will post it on the website once.
I will, in fact, post it in the either today or tomorrow. I'm trying to confirm if there's more than 3, but there'll be at least 3. All right, but I'm super hungry, so let's get right into it and talk about a new board game. A board game to review. Reviewing board games on Geek Nights. We played a new board game that we can review. When was the last time
we went to PAX Unplugged, and Rim didn't miss the PAX for once.
Yeah.
And so there were games there that we played that we had never played previously, that we played together, and so we can discuss them.
Yep. So Moorland hit the table twice at this PAX Unplugged. So
this is a game for 2023, so it's not the newest, but it's new to us, and it's new to probably most people listening.
And I will say right now, Moorland had mechanics I have not seen before and wasn't bad. Like, I enjoyed my time with it. A friend of ours actually bought it at the convention. I thought about buying it. The only reason I waited is that I didn't have any room in my luggage to take it home, and it's
not even that big. It's kind of a normal size one.
Oh yeah, but my luggage was packed to the brim because I packed very, very minimally with a tiny, tiny suitcase.
Yeah.
But Moorland is interesting in that it's about moors, like the moors in Scotland. But it's also kind of a pun because you're literally playing tiles that are land. And the theme is that you are basically curating and like making a moor. Like you're digging the little trenches for the water, and you're planting the plants to make a thriving ecosystem, and you're all competing in your own separate boards for who makes the best moor ecosystem by the end of the game.
It is supposed to be like an educational thing to some extent, and in fact, when you buy this game, some of your money goes to like the Global Nature Fund to help protect, the environment or whatever that Global Nature Fund does. I don't know much about them, but there's a big thing on the box. It's like, save the moors. Buy this game. You'll help save the moors just by buying it. And then you can pretend and role play saving the moors by playing it.
Yep. And it's a pretty good game. It's got some stuff going on. So basically, everyone gets their own board to put tiles on. But you're all drawing tiles to play from a pool, and you rotate like who goes first picking a tile. And the tiles have stuff on them. But the resource in the game is basically on those tiles. You'll get plants of different types, plus other things on the tiles, like this tile has a frog on it. Or this tile has a water strider on it. And those are all or a snake. And those are all part of the scoring at the end of the game. And when you pick a tile up, you can either place it right away or just hold on to it and not place it. But once you pick up your third tile, if you pick one up and there's 3 in front of you, well, now you've got to play all 3 right the fuck now. And if it turns out that you can't play all 3 in a way that you wanted to, you are stuck playing them. And if it ruins you, it ruins you. So you kind of how much of a combo can you build up before you got to throw it out?
Yeah, I mean, most games, that have, buying things with resources, you collect the resources in a pile and then you just spend them. In this game, any resource you collect is going to be on one of the tiles on your board in like a, just sort of like they each have 6 spaces on them.
Yep.
So it'll just be like, they can hold 6 things. And so every tile that you can place has a cost associated with it. Like, if you want to play this tile, it has to be on an empty space that has at least 2 white pieces just sitting there waiting, right?
Yep.
And then so the cost has to be already like ready in the location that the tile's going to go. So even if you have 2 white but they're separate from each other or they're in the wrong spots, you might not be able to play, a tile that costs 2 white. You got to arrange it in advance. And so that's pretty clever and interesting. The other thing is that once you play a tile, obviously the resources that go towards the cost, those get spent. If there's extra resources, because there probably will be, on that spot that weren't used for the construction of the new tile, they flow down the river to another tile.
The river that you have made of all the tiles you've played so far.
Exactly. So they flow down the river to a new free space to where they can now await you playing your next tile. So it's sort of like this cascade of it. Well, not sort of. It is. It's a cascade.
It's a literal cascade.
You put the resources in some spots. You play tiles on those spots, removing some of the resources, and the rest of the resources float downstream to where you can play more cards. And you have to manage this in such a way that you don't get stuck where so many ways to get stuck. Resources can't flow because the river is bad.
Yep.
You can't play a tile because the wrong mix of resources are on a tile.
Yep. If there's nowhere for resources to go, you just take negative victory points, like you're effed.
Yeah, there's just like so many ways for this to go wrong. A tile is completely full of resources, but they don't match like any of the things that you can play, so they're just sort of stuck there.
And with the victory point salad, that's kind of how the game scores. It's a little more like Agricola in that you kind of got to balance everything, and you're trying to make the most balanced possible board. If you hammer one thing too hard, it probably won't help you win, and you're probably going to take some negative points because you messed up something else.
Yeah, you can always flip a tile over to the backside where it's like a plus tile. It's like the safety tile, but it actually sucks for you to do that, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it's like the tiles come out, the river ones that you get to place and you're purchasing, and you sort of draft them around the table. And it's like you might be looking and it's like, yeah, when you're going first, you get your pick of them, and you can pick one that's good for you that you know you can afford to play, and it matches your river nicely, and it's going to work out well. But then next turn, you go last. And so now you're going to have to take a tile, and you had to be able to occasionally deal with, I'm going to have to play something no matter what, and it might not be good.
But
I had to be resilient enough and have enough flexible resources to deal with whatever gets drawn from that deck.
Now that is, I think, the most clever mechanic, because the flowing of the resources is really cool. Like, I haven't seen that in a game before, and I like it a lot. But the fact that if you take a tile, you can play it immediately or wait, and then you can build up like a reservoir of up to 3, but then you're forced. It's like a little buffer, because in a lot of games where you draft tiles, if you go last, like, you just get fucked and there's nothing you can do about it. In this case, say I go last. Well, I just don't play it. I take a tile. I take the best tile I can. I put it in front of me. I don't play it yet. And now my mission is to pick up a different tile in the next round that I'm going to pick one up to try to like mitigate the harm of that bad tile or turn that bad tile into a good tile. And I can do this up to 3. It's like the buffer. But once I've got my 3rd tile, well, if I've just kept kicking that can down the road and I've got 3 bad tiles, well, now I'm screwed. Imagine if in Carcassonne, you could draw a tile and instead of playing it, hang on to it, and then eventually play all 3 tiles in one big turn.
One thing I thought actually the most interesting mechanic is that for generating the seed resource wooden pieces, they're generated from the blank, not yet covered tiles, right? So that have the 6 spaces on them. So your board starts out where like you have 2 different ones that can generate wild, which means anything, and you've got some that can generate all the different colors. But it's like, okay, eventually you cover up your one that generates, white resources, whatever they are. And now you can't really generate more white ones.
Well, it's not generate. It's a little different from that. Remember, each tile generates a different number of resources. Like if you pick this tile, you're going to get 3 of something. If you pick this other tile, you're going to get 1. And you might be asking, but wouldn't I always want to pick the 3? Well, 1, you might want to cover that 3 with a tile, and now you can't generate things there anymore. But 2, it is really easy to have too many resources. I did not win. In fact, I did very badly the first time I played because I thought, typical Rim style heuristic, I'm going to generate as many resources as I can to be flexible for the second half of the game. And then at the end of the game, I had a pile of resources I couldn't spend, and that's all negative points.
I played this game and I absolutely dominated. It wasn't even close.
It was not close.
And basically, I think this is actually the bad thing about the game is that for all this cleverness and interestingness, I pretty much found what I believe to be the answer right away.
I don't think what you did is the most possible optimal way to play, but...
Oh, no. I was actually... I could have gotten 3 more points. I was too careful. If I had been more reckless and played shittier, I would have had 3 more points than I had.
Yup.
at the end of the game, because there's these lily pads that you get on your tiles, and basically resources when they flow down the river, that because you didn't use them, you can, instead of landing them and in an empty space to use for your next tile, you can land them on a lily pad as like a safety, a valve. We're like, oh, this resource that I can't rescue, I'll get it on a lily pad. That way I'm safe.
Some of those turn into victory points, and some of those remove it for you so you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, but every full lily pad gives you a point. But they're like a safety valve, so I'm like, okay, I'll try to be really efficient and not have to use them. And then I assume, just because the game has this difficulty factor of, of course you can't use everything, that at the end of the game I'll have some spares and I'll fill up the lily pads. I was so careful and so precise that at the end of the game I had empty lily pads. I had 3 empty lily pads. If I had been reckless and just taken some extra resources that even if I knew I couldn't use them and they would damage me, I actually had lily pads to spare.
Yep.
And would have gotten more points by being more.
But you still
less
blew
careful.
us all out of the water.
Yes, I blew you out of the water with the basic strategy, which was the snake strategy. Basically, I focused on the river, because there are 16 tiles on the board, and you get this points for like getting the longest contiguous river. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll just make a 16 length river, and any other points I get along the way is gravy. And so I started in one spot, and I moved all the resources to one place, and then I put a tile there, and I just drew this path with the river that would take up all the spaces on the board, and I put tiles out one at a time, and I flew all the resources just to the head of the snake. And I just said, all right, I'm taking whatever tile goes on the head of the snake, and I'm going to move all the leftover resources to where the new head of the snake is. Literally, like I was playing Snake with the apple eating.
Yep, or like it's your cursor and you're just moving it around.
Right. It's like Tron, and I'm just trying to fill up the board for some reason without crashing, right? And so I ended up getting a river of 15 spaces, not 16. I was a little less perfect there. But yeah, that's the strategy. I'm pretty sure if you do that, you can't do better. But
I think there might be a way to do better, but it would... I
could have had a 16 length river, and I could have used those lily pads and been a little more reckless. I would have had, but I still won by like 10 points or something. So,
but it does have a nice, everyone's making their own like tile area. So it's kind of like, here's the situation. You all have the same agency except for the drafting of the tiles, who does the best job optimizing the ecosystem. But they have a little incentive in that there's this clever little set of cards you put out. And for any given position in anyone's board, whoever plays the first tile there gets a water drop that's basically effectively a victory point. Like it's sort of a get out of jail free card for a resource. And it incentivizes trying to play in a place no one else has played before first. But overall, like, it was a pleasant game. It does not take long to play. It does not take that long to teach, though I think teaching it, people don't really get it until they've played a few rounds, and then they get it.
Yeah, the only thing that's, I think, really hard to get is just, when you to put a tile on a spot that already has the cost involved, right? It's like if it was a magic card that cost 2 forest and an island, or 2 green mana and a blue mana, it's like not only do you need 2 green and a blue to buy it, you need to have 2 green and a blue in the spot that you want to put it. And that's how it works.
Yeah, but props to this game for having 2 novel mechanics that I have not seen before in games that I'd like to see in more games, and being a pretty pleasant experience that, our panel at PAX was take your fucking turn, how to go quickly. This game does not overstay its welcome. It's a pretty quick game to play.
The game plays fast because, this drafting goes in a circle, but it's just literally pick one of these cards, and then everyone can sort of do their own thing. There's not a lot of waiting going on, right, in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that for usually like these sort of educational, do good, nonprofit, promotional type games usually don't hit very well.
Usually,
right?
either
the same reasons that
they're accurate to the thing.
Christian video games don't do well. Right?
Well, here's what I found: those games are either typically accurate in some meaningful way to the thing, but are not fun as a result because the thing isn't fun as a game, or they're thematically accurate, but the gameplay has nothing to do with the theme, so they just don't feel good, or they're just bad. This one actually is true to the theme, like in a mechanical and thematic way, and it's fun to play. That is really fucking hard to do.
Yep. So would I buy this game? No.
Well, no, because Alex bought it, so
yeah, sure. But I mean, would I play this game again? Yeah. But would I play this game again a lot? No. But I think if you have like a classroom or a library,
this should absolutely be in the PAX tabletop library.
Or maybe you have like an Airbnb that families stay at, and right, it's like this is the kind of game that kind of situation, right? People can play a few times, right? They'll be able to learn it, but they'll still get, value out of it. It'll be a deeper experience than the other games they're playing. But I think that the hardcore type gamers looking for like the deep strategies will only get so many plays out of this.
If a Rim and Scott played this multiple times in a row, my guess is 2 more plays and we'll have proven that there's 1 or 2 optimal strategies, and we wouldn't be making decisions anymore is my guess.
But if you're in the game designing realm, at least read the rule book, because you'll see there's some things I saw that I don't see in someone who's seen as many games as I've seen. That's rare. And
also, the rules were well written, and that's a sticking point for us. Like Hansa Teutonica, my favorite game.
Design, the rules, everything production-wise, there were no issues, which is actually not common.
Yeah, like overall, I would give this game an A, not in the sense of like, is it a game I will play forever, because the bar for that is impossible, but because it's like a super well-designed game that does everything it intended to do.
So it's like a mission accomplished situation. Great job. You did what you were gonna do. Not an all-time masterpiece, but not everything has to be all-time masterpiece.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you made the perfect painting to like hang in that dentist's office. You couldn't do better. Just because it's not going to hang in the Louvre doesn't mean that like you suck or something, right?
So designed by Stefan Boggin, so props to you. But clicking on the linked games in Board Game Geek right now, the other game that you appear to have designed is Camel Up.
Oh, well, Camel Up, it might be closer to the Louvre.
Yeah, Stefan Boggin, you're a good game designer, I would say.
I would agree.